All right. Imagine Monday morning you're walking into class about 15 minutes late. In our hearing culture, you're probably in trouble, right? You get a tardy slip, you might get a couple of looks. In the deaf culture, it is completely different. Now, I have taken multiple classes in ASL as well as deaf culture classes, so my experience between those things as well as my interaction in the deaf community are what give me my knowledge and experience on this topic. Now, if you guys are wanting to use any ASL inside or outside of the classroom, what I'm about to tell you, these cultural differences are going to be really important to know. So the purpose of my speech today is to inform all of you guys about a few key cultural differences between the deaf culture and the hearing culture. All right, guys ready? Okay, so to start, let's go back to the hearing culture page. Okay, so to start, we're going to start with hearing culture, and the thing about hearing culture is it's really cool. We're all hearing in this room, right? So all these different decisions that we make, they all have a direct line to our hearing culture. So we're going to just look at a couple of those right now. We all have these personal spaces, our bubbles, that you don't really reach into someone else's. You kind of have your own area, and that's where you stay. Another thing in our culture is eye contact. In a classroom setting, eye contact is not necessary. So if Ms. Sharp's teaching, you guys are expected to look down and take notes. If you look down and take notes, maybe if you flip your book, she doesn't stop the class. The class continues, and you continue, and you look up every now and then, and you carry on that way throughout the rest of the class. Now, those are information type things. When it gets to personal levels, in the hearing culture, this differs a little bit. There are variances in how open and closed people are, but generally, we tend to stay a little more closed. And our introductions are usually just surface level. So it's, hi, my name is, nice to meet you, how's your day? And that's about it. We don't really get into the childhood or the past of the people we're talking to. And we have all heard this rule growing up. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. So that's a huge thing in our hearing culture. We don't talk about the negatives. We don't point out the bad stuff. If you can't say anything nice, you better keep your lips shut and you don't say it at all. So now that we've looked at a couple of situations in the hearing culture, we're going to look at those same situations, but how the deaf culture would handle those. All right. Now, in the journal Communication Considerations A to Z, Benedict and Legg say that deaf culture is based on deaf values and perspectives. These cultures and values are what is different from the hearing culture that are going to make the way we interact in these situations different. So, for example, where I mentioned a personal space or your bubble in the hearing culture, in the deaf culture you have sign space. This is where you communicate, so there's no boundaries. Another thing is the eye contact. In a school setting, for example, eye contact is necessary in deaf culture. And according to an article, Interacting with Deaf People, A to Z, by Gretchen Weich, we learn that in the hearing culture, eye contact can convey different meanings, anywhere from love interest to aggression. In deaf culture, your eye contact is only used for understanding. So the way I'm looking at you doesn't mean anything, but I'm paying attention to you. Introductions in the deaf culture. One of the first things that you're going to ask if you meet a deaf person is, where did you go to school? We don't ask that in the hearing culture because it's not very important. But in the deaf culture, it is. According to Holcomb and Mendez, according to, I don't know who. Anyway, the introductions are the most important because when you ask about where someone went to school, that's where deaf people learned to sign. So that's a huge connection to their culture. So where we wouldn't ask it here because it doesn't hold that much relevance, it does in the deaf community. And another rule that they have that is very different from the hearing culture is if you can see it, you can say it. And we learned this in a video by, let's see, Holcomb and Mendez. It's a 2001 video and it's called See What I Mean? The Differences Between Deaf and Hearing Culture. And in this video you learned that if you can see it, you can say it. Now that we have covered both the hearing culture as well as the deaf culture and the different situations and how they are handled in each, I'm just going to conclude with a brief wrap-up of everything we've discussed. All right, so personal space. In the hearing culture, we had it. In the deaf culture, it's pretty free reign. Eye contact, hearing culture, not necessary. Deaf culture, it is. And introductions, they become a little more deep within the deaf culture, than they did in the hearing culture. And finally, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Versus the, if you can see it, you can say it rule in the deaf culture. Now, I hope you guys have had just as much fun with this speech as I had giving it to you. And remember, the if you can see it, you can say it rule is for deaf culture, not for Monday in class with Miss Sharp.